What's good, Cubers? It's your boy Matt, and I'm back with a new Card of the Week video, and I thought we'd take a quick look at Theater of Horrors. Theater of Horrors is a black and a red for a Rakdos enchantment that says, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, and if opponent lost life this turn, you may play cards exiled with Theater of Horrors. For 3 and a red, Theater of Horrors deals 1 damage to target opponent or Planeswalker. And the question that we're always asking is Theater of Horrors cubable? Let's get started. As always, when we evaluate guild cards, we have to think a little differently, because we only run a few, and we can't just straight compare mana slots, although we'll see how Theater of Horrors might ask us to do that in a minute. We have to be more picky because we only get 5 to 6 guild cards depending on the size of our cube. You might only get 3. So when we're talking about Theater of Horrors, the thing we need to do is stack it against the staples of Rakdos in cube. What are those staples? So the Rakdos staples are actually pretty easy to identify. Most people tend to agree that Daretti, Ingenious Iconoclast, and Kolaghan's Command are the top tier of Rakdos cards. Now, your boy here feels that Judith belongs right in this group. And then lastly is Rakdos Cackler, which is played pretty much universally in cubes all over the world. Daretti offers us some interesting artifact synergies. First, most importantly, he creates bodies that protects himself, but then he can sack those bodies to destroy dangerous targets. Kolaghan's Command does everything. It brings creatures out of your graveyard back to your hand, makes your opponent discard cards, destroys artifacts, deals 2 damage to creatures or players. It does it all. And then Judy is a great card that really alters combat math on the battlefield. If you've seen me talk about Rakdos Cackler before, and I realize I just said see and talk in the same sentence, you'll know that I'm not really a big fan of this bad Savannah Lion. He's going to be a 2/2, he's not going to be able to block, and I think his 2 toughness is irrelevant. So I actually think that Theater is maybe better than Rakdos Cackler. Now her effect, Theater's effect, is really unique and really hard to find elsewhere in cube, giving aggro, and Rakdos aggro in particular, deeper reach into the game. But because its casting cost is only 1 black and 1 red, it's actually even splashable in other colors. But I do want to point out that Theater actually creates a unique problem amongst these cards. Theater costs 3, Daretti costs 3. Kolaghan's Command costs 3, and Judith costs 3. And while I'm not normally concerned about casting costs in my guild, I don't know that I want all 4 of my Rakdos guild cards costing 3. If we have a 360 card cube and 8 players sit down to draft it, that means we're going to see every card, and that means the Rakdos player is going to catch 4 cards all in the 3 mana slot, in addition to whatever black or red cards they find. So that's going to create problems for them to cast their stuff on curve, which means maybe we don't need to play all 4 of these cards. If we look at our tier 2 Rakdos cards, we start off with 2 removal spells, Terminate and Dreadbore. Now Terminate is probably better because it is at instant speed, but Dreadbore is very playable because it also allows us to target Planeswalkers. But again, in cube, instant speed is vital. It can keep you alive, whereas sorcery speed will frequently get you killed. After those 2 cards, we have the Falkenrath Aristocrat, Flying Haste, 4/1, sack a creature, give her indestructible. If you killed a human, put a +1/+1 counter on her. So she's a little situational, but a sacrifice outlet is very relevant. And then the Murderous Redcap, who, when he enters the battlefield, deals damage equal to its power to any target, so that's flexible. And then he persists, so he'll come back in and deal another damage after he dies. And the 2, the Aristocrat and the Redcap, actually synergize really, really well in the form of an Aristocrat package. Wait, that reminds me. Judith actually functions as part of an aggro or aristocrats package, and now we can easily trigger the Theater of Horrors with the Red Cap or with Judy, and maybe even the Falkenrath, because we can use her as a sacrifice outlet to ping with Judy or with the Red Cap. And here's where we can trigger Theater really, really easily and consistently be able to use her. Maybe this is where Theater is at home, inside some kind of aristocrats package, where we can trigger it frequently, always be able to play the cards that's on it, and while it does have that mana sink attached to it, most of the time we prefer not to use it, and this will give us a way around it. But wait a second, what about our aggressive package? Judy slots in there, What about her and the Cackler? Actually, they fit Theater of Horrors too. An aggressive package is going to be swinging in, hitting with your opponent, trading creatures. Judy's going to be slinging damage over the battlefield, lightning bolts, lightning strikes. Theater of Horrors is going to be turned on for us to play with a lot in that style of deck too. Maybe Theater of Horrors really does fit into Rakdos better than we thought. So what have we learned about Theater? Well, it provides us card draw. It's a good mana sink, although that's less relevant in Cube. It extends aggressive decks into the late game. It synergizes with Rakdos Aristocrats. I mean, you don't have to have Judy. You could be playing Blood Artist, Falkenrath, Noble, Zulaport, Cutthroat, any of your normal Aristocrat cards. It synergizes with aggressive decks, but depending on the way our Rakdos guild is structured, it could be our third or fourth 3-drop, which is problematic. Brings us back to our central question. Is Theater of Horrors cubable? And I really think the answer is hinging on two things. I think it hinges on curve. I don't think you want 4 3-drops in the Rakdos section of your cube. And a little bit on power level, because it is an enchantment that comes down and does nothing the turn you play it. Which means if it gets removed immediately, then you lost card advantage for sure. But it's also not far off from the top tier of the Rakdos cards. There's Duretti and Kolaghan's Command and Judith, and then Terminate, or maybe even Theater of Horrors. It's right there. So Theater of Horrors is certainly playable in Cube, and I actually think it's playable in a cube of almost any size, so long as you're paying attention to your curve. I don't think you want 4 3-drops. But if that's not an issue, then I think Theater of Horrors is even playable in a cube of 360 cards, provided again that your curve is correct and that the power level of your cube is not off the charts. I also want to point out one more reason to play Theater of Horrors, and that is that its effect is unique. And uniqueness is something really important to Cube. The idea that this is the only card that does this increases its value in draft and increases its value in the cube. When you see Theater of Horrors, if you want card draw, you have to take it. You have to take it because it's the only thing that does that. Well, that's going to do it for today, Cubers. Feel free to like and subscribe. Helps out a lot. Lets me know that you like what we're doing here. If you think I got it wrong, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. My wife lets me know all the time. If you have a suggestion for card of the week, please feel free to leave it below as well. Requests will be honored, guys. And until then, shuffle up. Keep cubing, my friends.